When people first encounter William James's radical empiricism, they often focus on the claim that experience comes before the split into mind and world. But another part of James's view is just as important. Experience includes relations. It includes not only the things we can name, but also the transitions that connect them. James sometimes describes these connective parts of experience as conjunctive. The term sounds technical, but the idea is simple once you see what he is pointing to. The world of experience is not a pile of isolated atoms. It is a continuous flow held together by felt ends. To appreciate conjunctive experience, start from the stream of consciousness. James argues that consciousness is continuous, selective, and constantly moving. If you pay attention to your own thought, you do not find a sequence of discrete frames. You find a passage. A thought fades into the next. An image leads into a word. A feeling shifts into an interpretation. The movement itself is part of what you experience. Conjunctive experience is James's name for this connective tissue, the felt continuity, the transition, the with, the toward, the into, the because that binds one phase of experience to another. James introduces this idea partly to resist a common philosophical starting point, the assumption that the mind first receives isolated sensations, and then adds relations by thinking. On that atomistic model, relations are later constructions and the immediate data are relationless. James thinks this is phenomenologically false. When you hear a melody, for example, you do not hear isolated notes that you later connect. You hear the passage of the melody, the relation of one note to the next, the sense of continuity and direction. The between is part of what is given. That between is conjunctive experience. The same is true in language. When you hear a sentence, the meaning depends on relations across time. Earlier words remain present in a certain way, while later words reshape the whole. If the stream did not hold together conjunctively, understanding would collapse. Conjunctive experience is therefore not a rare philosophical phenomenon. It is a basic condition for meaning, memory, and coherent perception. James's point is that empiricism should not ignore it just because it is harder to name than a thing. This also connects to James's concept of the fringe of consciousness. Much of the conjunctive relation between ideas is not experienced as an explicit concept. It can be experienced as a vague fit, a sense of relevance, a feeling of direction. You sense that one thought belongs with another, that a certain interpretation is coming, that a name is on the verge of being recalled. These are relational experiences that guide cognition even when they remain in the background. For James, the fringe is one place where conjunctive experience becomes especially visible. It shows how meaning often exists as a felt relation rather than as a fully articulated proposition. James contrasts conjunctive experience with disjunctive experience, which emphasizes breaks, separations, and discontinuities, experiences of not, other, apart. But James's deeper claim is that both kinds of experience are real. The world is not only continuous, and it is not only fragmented. Experience includes both connection and separation. The mistake is to treat connection as unreal because it is relational, or to treat separation as unreal because we prefer unity. Radical empiricism says, take the whole field of experience seriously, including its relations. This has consequences for psychology and philosophy of mind because it changes what we treat as basic. If conjunctive relations are directly experienced, then the mind is not a machine that must assemble a world from disconnected pieces. The world comes to us already in structured passages, already in flows of relevance and direction. Cognitive explanation then becomes less about inventing a glue and more about describing how selection, attention, and habit operate within an already connected stream. It also affects the mind-world split. If conjunctive relations are part of experience, then the boundary between inner and outer is not the original fact, it is a later distinction. We begin with experience that includes both the so-called inner and the so-called outer in a continuous field. and we later categorize parts of that field as subjective or objective, depending on their functional role. Conjunctive experience supports this Jamesian picture because it highlights continuity. The sense that experience is not delivered as two separate domains that must be bridged by inference. A reasonable objection is that even if we feel relations, that does not prove relations exist independently of the mind. James's response is methodological. If you adopt empiricism, you must begin from what is given. Conjunctive experience is given. If a theory denies what is given, the burden is on the theory to explain why the denial is justified. James is not claiming to solve every metaphysical problem with one move. He is claiming that any adequate psychology of consciousness must include the experience of transition and connection as part of its data. So conjunctive experience is, in the end, a discipline of description. It is James's way of reminding us that consciousness is not only about objects. It is also about passages. It is about how one moment leads to the next, how meaning persists across time, how thought hangs together as a string. And if you keep that in view, radical empiricism becomes less like a strange philosophy and more like a careful report about what experience is actually like when we stop forcing it into an atomistic model.